family. Welcome back to JFK Today, your direct link to all things politics, comedy, and culture. I am your host, Janaya Future Khan, champ-yapper and frequent nuisance in the activist and comedy worlds. Let's get dialed in. Just before we jump, JFK Today is a self-funded, self-produced show. We're on Patreon at Janaya FK. I am so grateful for all the support and for you just taking the time to listen. All right, let's hit it. We got this for-profit presidency. And we're really going to break it down and the latest anti-immigration legislation that just passed. It is the Laken Riley Act. We are going to break some things down, make it make sense. But first, a couple quick hits. So get this. One of these orders that Trump signed in is he banned the pride flag in federal buildings. Okay, in all honesty, I would definitely do this if I was in power. Ban it. Ban it. Ban pride. If I was in charge, there would be no pride for anyone. No one would be proud. No one proud. In my world, we'd all have the exact right amount of shame right now. The shame that comes with knowing that we can no longer tell children that they could be whatever they want when they grow up. I just see a little bit of pride, 3 years dungeon. A little sticker, couple of fingernails painted too colorfully, 30 years dungeon. No, but here's the thing. We get to do that. We get to crack those jokes because that's our community. That's the lefty community, right? I take umbrage that this administration dares, this ugly, fugly, loser administration dares to take their sausagey gout, too much rich meat fingers and sign this kind of legislation, okay? Because here's the thing. How dare you cowards, right? This administration shame people for being courageous enough to figure out who they are in this world, right? Something that so many people are denied the opportunity to discover or are too scared to for so many reasons. We represent possibility. This administration and people like it are so obsessed with the past. We represent the future. And so they treat us like a threat and not the invitation that we represent. Because as much as they annoy me, it is not the they-thems that are driving up the cost of groceries. It's not lesbian fire chiefs that are the reason why you're unhappy in your life. And book reading drag queens are not the reason why healthcare isn't free, right? So there are people out there who take they'll take thrills out of the misery and suffering of others. And it's cheap. It's cheap. And it will leave you hollower than the space between J.D. Vance's ears. This is why it is so essential that we be more annoying, more loud, and more obnoxious about who we are and our politics. We have to bring a certain level of unafraidness. But first, that comes with our building a muscle where we actually can be brave enough to confront each other. Because that's actually what's missing, right? Where the right is easy in a way, because we are so good at coming together against the thing. But the scrutiny that we have put each other through, my God, right? This is why I like this new legislation that just dropped, the new contraception bill. And it's key because the second that the Trump administration came into power, they gutted the reproductivejustice.gov site, right? And it's really easy to say, well, there's so many other reproductive justice, websites out there with information, but that was a critical one. And it suggested, it was federal funding, federal resourcing, and the fact that they hit that was one of the first things that they did. It tells you everything about where and how the priorities of this administration are gross, right? So this new contraception bill just dropped. So a Mississippi state senator filed a bill called the Contraception Begins at Erection Act. And I like it. And it's a quote, right? It would make it, quote, unlawful for a person to discharge genetic material without the intent to fertilize an embryo. I like it. Look, is it going to pass? Probably not, but do everything right now. This is a good opportunity, and I want to see that it's not just AOC out there throwing, elbows, and it's not just Bernie crossing his arms. I want to know who is really ready to fight right now, and let them do whatever they can to be annoying, right? That's anything that we can do to cause cracks in the surface. That's what we're feeling for right now, right? But then it comes down to us. Where are we in this moment? What are we doing? What are we supposed to be saying, right? So this is a great segue because I know a couple of you, I know one person for sure hit me up about this, but in my stories, I reposted, I reshared something in my stories with some, resistance IG page that was basically calling for a boycott of Meta for a week. So on the CTA, right, they say call to action to stop using all Meta platforms. So that's Facebook, Instagram, Threads, WhatsApp, etc. Right? Just don't do it for a week. And I said, this is not a good idea, right? So I want to preface first with saying I fully support individuals needing any kind of online break. There's grass out there that needs touching, This is a marathon, not a race, right? So it's a very separate thing, I think, to take a little purge time for yourself. That's why having sustainable movements are so crucial, or just sustainable brain trust, is that nothing should shift or change just because people need a break. We need people cycling in and out, right? But I cannot emphasize this enough. We need to take up as much space as possible. Non-engagement is not an option. It is simply not an option, right? We're in these early stages of downloading essential information, forming new thought patterns, understanding the new political landscape, right? And the hubris, right? And the presumption, because it was framed as a call to action that this would show Mark Zuckerberg, that we're just not going to stand for. And I, there's nothing wrong. Like I'm aware that I said, we got to throw paint at the wall, but there's a reason why this call to action annoys me, right? Because it doesn't understand what a boycott actually is and what it requires. There's a lack of follow through and the presumption, the hubris to say it's going to impact Mark Zuckerberg in any meaningful way. Boycotts are high capacity, high impact, long term. I'm talking years, decades. It could be decades. Long term campaigns that require mass communication, mass network and coalition building. They have very clear deliverables and are coupled with, escalation pressure points, right? So, I want to explain, right? I met Omar Barghouti in Palestine. He's a Palestinian human rights defender and one of the founding members of the BDS movement, right? So this was around 2016. And just a reminder, right? So the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. And this is something that we saw really come up post October 7th, 2023 in the last 15 months. And it was inspired by the South African anti-apartheid struggle, right? And the U.S. civil rights movement, and it's like the nonviolent, anti-racist BDS movement in Palestine was launched in 2005 by this broad coalition in Palestinian society, right? So it called for ending Israel's 1967 occupation, upholding, the rights of Palestinian refugees to return to their lands, ending Israel's institutionalized and legalized system of racial domination, which for very obvious reasons meets the United Nations definition of apartheid, right? And that action went from 2005 right up to today with varying degrees of attention and success. What we saw, the South African, the boycott of South Africa's apartheid regime was so successful because it had global partnership. Um, Countries took part in sanctioning South Africa. Their economy suffered enormously. So my concern right now, right, is not just that calling for a boycott is an extremely involved process that requires real coalitions that are dedicated to this for a long time. But we have to be very careful of our energy right now. Like, I'm very, very mindful of that, because too many there's call to action fatigue, right? And the things that we should be participating in right now ought to be campaigns run by local and national political organizations that are trying to stop the hemorrhaging, right? The blunt force that specific communities are being met with. One of the most urgent ones, of course, are migrant and immigrant justice organizations. Why this is crucial is because you have people who are paid, right? Who are paid or have volunteer infrastructure, who have legal experts, in addition, to organizing experts, who can do this work with range in mind. Because otherwise, right, all these random CTAs, the message box is distorted. So this person on IG said this person on TikTok said that, right? And our energy will sink faster than a pug in a pool, right? We did horrible things to those adorable creatures. They cannot survive without us. So we have to be really mindful of it. And so it's all good if it's like, if it's framed as, I'm like, let's take a break, right? Does anybody else need a break from, Meta or whatever? I respect that. I support that. But to use campaign rhetoric at this moment, I think we have to, I would prefer to scale that back. I also think it's just, what are we in 2013? Like, we actually need to take up space. We have created such a culture of fear, of cancellation, of virtue signaling amongst each other and amongst ourselves, that, well, I think we're a little bit afraid to talk to each other. And I see this moment as revelatory and essential that we be present. We literally cannot, non-engagement is simply not an option. I want to be more articulate on this. I'm still sitting with it, and I also don't want to belabor, what an actual boycott looks like or how involved it is. But, in talking to Omar, I really understood how much goes into a boycott, and part of the reason why was because at the time, we were wondering what that would look like as a strategy around the movement for Black Lives, and you have to look at, how specific you need to be in your targets. Do you know what I mean? Like, how specific you have to be. What is the point, right? Unless you are willing to put on the pressure that would force a break point. That's where that's useful. When we had Lena Khan as the FTC chair, that was a great opportunity to put pressure on these big tech players. But right now, yelling about a boycott on Meta products, right, is about, I don't know, it would be about as impactful as Monique calling for a boycott of Netflix. Like, you must have coalition, you must have mass in order for it to be effective. So anybody who needs to take a beat, go ahead. But to frame it as that, to me, is I think we really need to political education is going to be a big part of this. And not in a way that feels like scary or having to read like Fanon, even though he's actually fucking awesome, but but in a way that is more intent on preserving energy and choosing strategic moments. But again, the best place to put your energy right now, if that need to do something is there, and I understand that. I feel it deeply. I was like clutching my chest like I have boobs. What is that? I think where did this come from? I feel it. And, there are so many amazing migrant justice organizations right now. And new, what is it called? Like media platforms that are going to be intent on following what ICE is doing and ICE raids. And I can collect some of that information for you. I have it somewhere in one of my like trillions of folders. But that's the reason why. And I talked about this way more than I wanted to. I hope that was useful because I just be yapping sometimes. Anyway, let me move on. So Amazon, they removed their DEI policy. Right. So they quietly removed protections for their Black and LGBTQ workers from its company policies. And it's like, oh, good. Great, right? Now we know that when Amazon workers have to piss in bottles and skip meals to meet the demand of their abusive infrastructure, we know that that abuse will not be based on their race or gender or sexuality, right? But simply because they are the worthless proletariat. Realistically, there are way larger implications. I mean, what's very clear is DEI is being framed as this cultural issue, right? But it's actually masking a very full-blown attack and campaign to dismantle civil rights as a whole. It feels like I should have made that connection way earlier in terms of where they're headed, but I can actually fully see the trajectory right now. And they're all these scale backs. They're for a reason. It's not just because Christopher Rufo, that dirty little hemorrhoid, saw this as a moment, right? When he started talking about the critical race theory, and there's that evolution of language, right? We had, identity politics, the cancel culture, woke, critical race theory, and DEI. You can actually see a rhetorical evolution, and it's like Black people, the LGBT community, and migrant folks. These are the areas that they see as the means to roll back any kind of civil protections. And what is jarring to me, because this is a game plan that can feel really obvious, what's jarring to me, and maybe it shouldn't be, is the absolute lack of outrage on any level from liberals and progressives. And I'm taking fatigue into consideration. I'm taking the fact that the Democrats got absolutely, trounced during the election. But I'm realizing that there's some latent resentment. Like they're still, like, I think a lot of liberals and progressives are angry for not feeling like they could speak for identity politics when actually it's like, no, you were doing the whole identity politics thing. Like, we were being annoying. Don't get me wrong. We were being super fucking annoying, but we actually don't have the population to effect the kind of staggering loss that happened. And a couple episodes back, I really, really break down the statistics. If we go back to some of the that's in the titles, the election episodes, where we just didn't have we didn't have the numbers for that. So I'm paying attention. Let's just put it that way. And I'm like, this is not a time to point the fingers, and this is not a time for this. I'm like, how do we build ourselves back up? Because I'm all about coalition building now, and that 25%. I don't give a damn about the 75 right now. I really don't. I didn't get into this work so people could get to know me. I got into this work so I could get to know people. I don't need anyone to get my name right or get my pronouns right or whatever. That's for the people who actually like me to do. We're here for this work. So I'm paying attention because they are revealing everything right now in this scamocracy. Let me just play this clip right quick here. And it's all like I'm still slow because I don't know what I'm doing with the screen share thing. Let's get this. Make this big. Be big. Okay. Did I want to do that? Yeah. So check this out. This is Trump speaking to how much money was made in a press conference, right? They're just so transparent. They're so transparent. Here we go.
Why did you remove John Bolton's security clearance, sir?
Because I think that was enough time. It's we take a job. You take a job. You want to do a job. We're not going to have security on people for the rest of their lives. Why should we?
You know what? I just realized that was the wrong clip. Oopsies. Wait.
I thought he was.
I have it. Look, this is me trying to do too many things at once. No, there's a clip where they're asking him how much money he made. And that was him on John Bolton. Here we go. This is the actual clip.
Continue selling products that benefit yourself personally while you're president?
Well, I don't know if it benefited. I don't know where it is. I don't know much about it other than I launched it. I heard it was very successful. I haven't checked it. Where is it today?
Hey, you made a lot of money, sir.
How much?
Several $1 billion, it seems like, in the last several days.
Several billion? That's peanuts for these guys.
Sycophants, shut up. Everything, every single thing that they do, every single move that they make, right, has a financial aspect involved. This is what we need to be clear about. Civil rights, right, provide some kind, that federal regulation, these provide some kind of checks and balances for them. It's all about squeezing everything out. So every single executive order, policy and legislative push, right? The Trump administration, whether it overturns it or signs it into law, has a massive for-profit motive, right? That exclusively benefits big pharma, big tech, big oil, and the private prison industry. He's scratching the backs of the billionaires who bankrolled his own campaign. So you can see how frivolously they just talk about, yeah, we made $1 million, we made billions of dollars by putting out a shit coin and then rug pulling the American people. That never got covered in the news appropriately, right? So let's talk about this Laken Riley Act. This is the first Trump bill that's passed, right? There's about 40 Democrats who passed that. It was presented last year. The House passed it today. And this is legislation that would allow immigration and customs enforcement, right? So that's ICE. It would allow agents to detain undocumented migrants accused of theft-related crimes. Accused of theft-related crimes, right? Not indicted fully, right? Not charged. Not proven guilty, accused. So the bill would be, this is the first, the bill will be the first Trump signs in his second term and is seen as a sign of the immigration crackdown to come. So why, right? Like we know that we could talk racism and this and that and, you know, da-da-da-da-da and the red herrings and blah, blah, blah. But this is not just what these guys are about. There's a massive for-profit incentive. Now, if we go back to like episode 78, I think, I was like, this time you're going to get it right? I talked about why there was such a push that was for all these detention centers. So if you arrest all these immigrants and all these migrants, you need to put them somewhere, right? You'd have to put them at scale. Trump has said that he was going to declare a national emergency for undocumented immigrants. We're seeing him push this through. This would cost, like, it's going to, the cost, the logistical and legal challenges, right, that would be needed to detain and deport millions of people. Well, there's a lot of people who are ready to do that. So according to an estimate by the American Immigration Council, like deporting 1 million people a year, which is what he's promised, would cost more than $960 billion over a decade, right? So one major impediment to the vast deportation operation would be we need more ICE officers and we don't have enough space. That's where Stephen Miller comes in. We know he's all up in this shit again, right? Military funds would be used. They want to build vast holding facilities that would function as staging centers. That's a direct quote from him. As for immigrants, as their cases progressed and as they're waiting to be deported to other countries, right? So who's going to build that? Who owns those private prisons, right? Somebody's making money. Here is AOC challenging that, right? Because I just want to be clear. Let me just break this down for one more second, right? Leaked documents right now. So that was from episode 78. Today, right? Leaked documents from the Trump administration show that ICE wants 4 new detention centers with 10,000 beds each and 14 smaller facilities with 700 to 1,000 beds each, right? That means tens of billions of dollars in taxpayer funds sent to private prison companies. So once again, taxpayers, regular Americans, pay to build these facilities, right? These monstrous facilities that would house people, while the government pays these private prison, profit barons to house these folks, right? And again, the burden is on taxpayers, but the private prison industrial complex and anybody who owns a share in those companies gilds their pockets with gold, right? So according to CPB briefing documents, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, that's ICE, is preparing to more than double its detention capacities. The Department of Defense may also utilize military bases as holding facilities. That's what this document says, right? So Trump officials have told lawmakers they will need billions of dollars in additional funding to meet the president's deportation goals by ramping up ICE's detention capacities. Here is AOC pushing back against the fact that there are sitting Congress members, mostly Republican, but a few, I dare say, on the Democrat side, that stand to make buco bucks from this. Let me just make this big again. I'm still slow at this. Here we go. Screen share, and here we go.
Money, no doubt. I want folks at home to look. Look at what members of Congress are invested in private prison companies who receive this kind of money, and look at the votes on this bill.
That's right.
It is atrocious that people are lining their pockets with private prison profits in the name of a horrific tragedy and the victim of a crime. It is shameful.
That is Laken Riley, a young woman who was murdered by a migrant. It was a very violent act, a very single story situation that has been used by the Republicans and by the GOP and by these billionaires for political gain.
It is absolutely shameful. And Mr. Speaker, I'll conclude with this. In a few months, there are members of Congress who voted for this bill who are going to pretend they didn't know about all the bad things that are going to happen because of it. So when a private prison camp opens in your town, when a dreamer...
Time has expired. I yield the gentlelady an additional 30 seconds.
So when a...
That's right. Give her them 30 seconds.
Private prison camp opens in your town, and they say, we didn't know this was going to happen. Know that they did, and they voted for it. When a dreamer is disappeared from your classroom, when the President of the United States destroys what is left of the Constitution, as he's announced in this attack on birthright citizenship, they will all say, we didn't know this was coming. And I want the American people to know that they did.
They did.
This vote represents it. And with that, I yield back. Thank you very much.
Gangster, right? This is what I'm talking about right here. This is it. It's very transparent. We know what's going on. We know what needs to be done about it. And this is a great moment, a great time for us to really start to queue up some of those migrant justice organizations and media platforms. So that's my job to do. And I'm on it because I am upset. This is one, it's heinous, right? You think about the sacrifice, the journey, the hardship that it takes to come here. Nobody wants to leave their home. Nobody wants to, but when you think about what America's foreign policy has done all across South America, for example, the destabilization that we've created, the way that rapacious corporate greed has fueled climate catastrophes everywhere, the responsibility and the burden that we hold and the burdens that we have placed on everyday people, right? And I say we, but it's really these fuckers. Let's be honest about that. So this is one of those moments where we need to be really clear that the reason why they're seeing this through, I know we want to talk about racism, we want to talk about this, and we want to talk about that. They'll say national security, this and that. It's money. It's money. They're going to make billions of dollars by running a fucking prison slave camp of migrants. They basically have squeezed the national black community and brown community for everything they can get. They need a new population because the only way to continuously make more money at the scale that they want is to abuse people unbelievably. This is 100% a for-profit presidency. Let's make no mistake about that. They are going to expand a form of due process-free expulsions known as expedited removal. They're going to do anything that they can, but I want to be clear. That was what they were talking about before they came into power. They are now incentivized not just to arrest people arbitrarily, but to detain them indefinitely, because the longer you house people, the more money you make from it. It's disgusting. Like everything that we say about how evil the system is, the players in it, it is mind-boggling to me. It is mind-boggling to me. But I want to say that there are champions and fighters everywhere. Many of you listening to this are those people. We are doing our research. There are people who are championing causes right now as we speak. This is far from over. This is where we are collecting information and understanding how they plan to execute their plans. And let me tell you something. The hardest thing about gaining power is keeping it. All we have to do is fuck everything up. Everything that they try, fuck it up. Break it. Right? So long, for so many years, we've had to be the people who have tried to come up with the solutions and the answers with a shitty democratic leadership. Right? So we have to answer for them. We have to answer. But it's like, no, we don't need to do that anymore. We're free. We are free. I want to give you an example of this, right? Because so much of I've been living on C-SPAN, CNN, MSNBC, right? Looking for who the next champions are, because the whole Democratic establishment is rotten. We know this, but who are the actual people that can be useful in this time as we think about who our coalitions, what the coalitions of the 21st century organizing model are going to look like, and who are the players? Here is a clip from Tim Kaine, right? Democrat in Virginia, who understands the assignment, right? I like what he did here. Peep this.
You were the president of the Center for Renewing America, and the think tank produced a 2023 budget proposal calling a commitment to end woke and weaponized government. Do you remember that?
Yes, Senator.
And that's the correct title?
Yes, Senator.
It's 104 pages of details to end woke and weaponized government, and it proposes deep cuts to the SNAP program. Is providing nutrition assistance to low-income kids woke and weaponized?
Ooh, what a good question. Yep. Is that woke and weaponized?
Senator, I'm not here to talk about the budget that the center put out. I'm here on behalf of the president.
Yeah, but you just said you did that. I want to know what's woke and weaponized about providing food assistance to low-income kids.
Well, again, I'm not here on behalf of my center, on behalf of the president.
I know that, but this is your work product. I mean, you can say it's not woke and weaponized, or you can tell me why it's woke and weaponized. I don't think SNAP programs or benefits for kids are woke and weaponized. You agree with me?
When we refer to the federal government being weaponized, we're referring to bureaucracies that.
Okay, so you didn't include SNAP. You proposed to cut SNAP, but you're not saying it's woke and weaponized.
Again, I am not going to answer questions about the Center for Renewing
You
America's
proposed
products.
deep cuts to Pell Grants. Is helping kids pay for college and helping their families, is that woke and weaponized?
Again, I'm not here to defend the Center for Renewing America's
I get it
budget.
that you're not here to defend that work product, and I can understand why. You proposed deep cuts to Medicaid for millions of low-income families. Why is that woke and weaponized? You propose undermining health insurance. Why is that woke and weaponized? Eliminating tenant-based rental assistance. Why is that woke and weaponized? Eliminating the low-income housing energy assistance program. This was all in your document about ending woke and weaponized government. Okay, let's see. We want to traumatize federal employees, and then we want to take all these programs that help everyday people who are struggling and cut them because they're woke and weaponized. Those are your words, not mine. From the fullness of the heart, the mouth speaks. I yield back.
I'm telling you, they got me fired up. They do. They got me fired up. And look, we can go back and say, well, like AOC voted in this way and da-da-da. We're done with that shit. We are done with that shit. I am telling you right now, for the fight ahead, right? Wipe the slate clean in a way, right? That doesn't mean, again, it's not, nobody's off the hook, but it's understanding who's casting the line right now. This is about coalition building. It's about finding our fighters. This got me charged up because I'm like, yeah, that's right. That's right. Keep showing their hypocrisy. This isn't about changing the minds of the right. Who cares about them? This is about demonstrating to everyday people how they have been caught up in a cultural war, right? While this billionaire class takes everything from them, squeezes everything from them. This is our time. This is how we win. It's about, all we got to do is be that thorn, and I'm here for it. And look, if it all goes to shit, I'm not running. I will transition into a white man. I'll do it. I found this clip. Sorry, I know we got to wrap. Let me just play this for you right quick. This is a black dude who disguised himself as a white guy. Just hold on. You just got to hear his process.
Makeup, I had no idea what to expect. I got a new nose, I got new eyes, I got bushy eyebrows, a thick mustache, I got glasses, and voila, I was a white guy. It felt strange. I was curious to see how eager people would be to give me directions as a white guy. Excuse me, sir. Where's DePaul University?
Oh my God.
Excuse me, where can I find DePaul University? DePaul is...
That's going to be me, y'all. That's going to be me. I'm going to be walking around. He looked like, I know most of you are not going to see it. He really looked like a very small zombie Tom Selleck. It was ridiculous, but I'm ready. I'm ready and willing. I'll do it. I'll run legislation like that. We got to do what we got to do. We're about to win. Okay, I'm literally so close to time. I just be yapping. Let me just hit that voicemail for the question of the day.
Hi, I'm Tori. I'm from New Hampshire, and I was wondering, has running this podcast changed your perspective on any global issues?
That's a good question. That's a really good question, Tori. And yes, more than a few episodes back, I think it keeps coming up routinely, is I have really understood, right? Because, I read Chomsky and Nader and, this and that and the other, Said, and you start making all these connections about what America's done in South America and the Middle East and what it's been for. And it was such a click for me to understand that so much of what we're seeing is this stupid thing that is Russia, North Korea, and Iran versus America, Israel, and the UK, right? And then you have China on one side, like China and France both like playing like on the fence coming in. And it's just so much of what our foreign policy is based on that. And it's so unbelievably stupid. Ugh. Oh, and there's one other follow-up, and then, I'll wrap it. I'll be very brief, but basically there was a question that was a few days ago that was like whether or not Trump will punish California. There's a caller that asked about that earlier. So on Wednesday, Trump's talking to Sean Hannity, yuck, right? And he said that all Federal Emergency Management Agency, that's FEMA, right, does is complicate everything. That's what Donald Trump said. So he's repeating his criticism and the misleading claims about federal disaster response during the Biden administration. This is another quote of his. "I'd rather see the states take care of their own problems," Trump told Fox News host Sean Hannity in that first sit-down interview of his presidency. He adds that states should, quote, fix what's happening in their state. And then the federal government can help them with that money. I want you to think about the climate crisis and crises that are happening across the United States right now. So part of the reason why he is threatening and will very likely withhold any kind of emergency support to California is because he wants to cut Gavin Newsom down at the knees. This is why I'm like, we need to be very mindful of how easily manipulated we are, because here's Gavin Newsom. We're like, hey, maybe I think we're better off in California because it very, very much is the breadbasket of America in so many ways. But that would be a moment where we're like, look at Gavin Newsom. He's not handling this thing and da-da-da-da-da. And we hammer him, they're hammering him, and we still get bubkiss. We get nothing, as a result. So this is fascism. He's going to punish any kind of governor or state reps or state senators that do not bend the knee. That is what this clearly is. And we need to know exactly what is happening. That's part of what we're doing here together. That's what we're doing in this show. Anyway, I've been yapping so much. Let me hit that end, music, because I just love talking to y'all so much. Oh, one last update. There's not going to be a Friday episode because I want to make sure that's interviews, because I'm sure you're so tired of just hearing me yap at you directly. And I'm really excited about it. We have some help with that because, we keep it right and tight. But next week we'll be having our first just yap sessions with journalists, experts, comedians, you name it, most of whom are very, very fun and very smart, and some of whom will end up being you. So I'm really excited about it. All right, here we go, the outro music. I just want to say thank you so much for listening to JFK Today. It means the world to me. The show really is a labor of love. New episodes are going to be dropping every day. For now, it's 4 times a week. Don't forget, we're on Patreon. If you want to show some love to the show, go ahead. And don't forget, this is vital. I want to hear from you. Drop your questions to jfktodayShow@gmail.com. Shout out to KR and the JFK team. And shout out to you, the listeners, that make it all possible. Love you. Peace.